My name is Deborah Lawson, and for as long as I can remember, silence was how peace was kept in my family. Whenever my father told people that I had given up, that I had left the Navy, I would just nod. I'd smile, and I would let that lie sit between us like an old wound no one wanted to touch. It started small, a joke at the dinner table, a story repeated at family gatherings, and slowly, that lie became who I was in his eyes. I believed that enduring it quietly was a form of strength. I thought that family harmony mattered more than being understood. But grief has a way of changing what silence means. My brother Jacob died, and at his memorial, listening to my father repeat those same tired words that I tried. But the pressure was just too much for me. Something inside finally broke. In that moment, I realized the peace I had been so carefully protecting was never really mine. That was the moment I stopped being the quiet one in the story he had written for me. Charleston was wrapped in a heavy morning fog when I arrived, the kind that softens everything except memory. The air tasted of salt and rust. Somewhere in the distance, a ship's horn cut through the quiet, a familiar ache I had spent years trying to forget. Inside the memorial hall, rows of uniforms filled every seat, polished shoes, straight backs. On the stage stood a wooden frame holding the folded colors of our flag, and inside it, Jacob's smile frozen in the moment before his final deployment. I sat in the back, where questions are fewer. No uniform, no insignia, just a dark coat and a steady breath. My father stepped up to the microphone. His voice was calm, proud, practiced. He spoke of Jacob as the pride of our family, a true hero. Then he paused and said, "My daughter tried the Navy once, but some people just aren't built for that kind of pressure." A few polite laughs moved through the room. I suppose even in grief, people still need something to laugh at. I didn't move. My training had taught me when stillness speaks louder than any words. No one there knew that among them sat someone who had once worn stars on her shoulders. I grew up in Charleston, a town that worships pride and fierce failure. My father was a ship captain, a man of precision, certainty, and rank. To him, worth only existed if others could see it, acknowledge it. I was quiet, deliberate, the kind of child who measured her words carefully. When I was accepted into officer candidate school, he didn't congratulate me. He just told me not to embarrass myself. I left before dawn the next morning, my suitcase clicking against the old porch steps. Training broke most people in the first month, not physically, but emotionally. Isolation teaches you a certain kind of discipline. And through it, I learned something my father never understood, that discipline isn't just about obedience. It's about endurance. 2 years later, I was reassigned to the Office of Naval Intelligence. My work became invisible. It was maps, signals, and plans that no one would ever know I wrote. When I called home that Christmas, my father asked where I was. I told him I couldn't say. He asked what I did. I said I analyzed data. His voice went flat. He said, "Sounds like clerical work." A week later, I heard from my mother that he was telling people I had left the Navy. I didn't correct him. Silence was the price of loyalty. Years passed in windowless rooms filled with static and screens. There were no medals, no applause, just the quiet, profound relief of a successful mission. And in learning how to disappear, I found my strength. One evening, a name appeared on an internal dispatch: Lieutenant Jacob Lawson, Navy SEALs. I smiled, thinking maybe one of us had finally become the kind of hero my father could understand. I didn't know then how close our paths were about to cross, or how devastating that crossing would be. They called it Operation Meridian, a hijacked civilian vessel off the coast of Yemen, 9 hostages, armed pirates. My name appeared only as initials in the command file. From a cold, dim room halfway around the world, I directed every decision. Every order had to be exact. Every move was on me. Hours later, the report came through. Operation successful. 9 civilians rescued. 1 casualty. Lieutenant Jacob Lawson. The air left my body. I didn't cry. I signed the file and added one final line: "Mission completed, accepting full responsibility." 2 months later, I was promoted. A general leaned in and said, "Your silence saved more lives than speeches ever could." I told him, "They'll never understand." He just looked at me and said, "One day they will." Years later, I was back in Charleston for Jacob's memorial. When General Cole stepped to the podium, his eyes found me in the back row. He said there was someone in the room who had served this country for over 25 years. Rear Admiral Deborah Lawson. Every sound in the hall vanished. The seals, Jacob's brothers in arms, rose in unison. I stood up slowly. No smile, no speech, just acknowledgement. For the first time, the silence wasn't heavy. It was honest. Outside, a young officer approached me. He said, "Meridian saved my team. We never knew who planned it." I just nodded. That's how it should be. Later, my father found me by the water. He said he had mistaken my silence for weakness. I told him it was how I kept people safe. A few days later, he stood before our family and told the truth. She didn't walk away. She served in the shadows so others could live in the light. Now, when I stand by the harbor and watch young cadets salute, I don't return it. I simply smile. Some victories don't need applause. Some truths stand quietly, and they never fall. Thank you for listening to my story. If you were moved by it, please consider liking and subscribing for more content like this.